Hi everybody, I'm Trisha Morris from Club Scrap, coming to you from my warehouse here in Neenah, Wisconsin. We have been making page kits and card kits here in Wisconsin every month for more than 21 years. And during that time, I have been finding creative ways to utilize every last sheet of paper that comes in our little pizza boxes. And I've developed a very efficient method I want to share with you today. I thought the best way to do that was just to give you a sneak peek at an experience that you would find if you were a card kit member at Club Scrap. And for my demonstration, I'm going to be using the Confetti card kit. So today I'm going to provide to you an opportunity to download those Confetti instructions, watch the full Confetti video, which is what our members were able to see when they made their cards, and also member pricing on that Confetti card kit. So whether you join Club Scrap or not, you'll be able to get this Confetti card kit for just $21.95. Well, let's get started. When you open the box, you'll find the kit, and we'll just take that out and check it out. We've got a whole bunch of papers here, some ribbons and goodies and embellishments, and then we also have a bunch of envelopes. So we include the exact number of envelopes required for your completed cards, whether they are size A2 or a 4-bar or a slimline, it doesn't matter. You'll have the right envelope for the cards you're going to make. Speaking of, let's take a look at the cards that this set of papers makes. So in this Confetti kit, you'll make 2 little bonus cards. These are absolutely adorable, and they fit in a little 4-bar envelope. And then this set also makes a set of 4 really adorable shaker cards. Everything you need to make the cards is included in the kit, with the exception just of the foam tape that you need for the dimension. Then we'll also learn how to make this cute split flap card. We'll make 4 of those. And finally, 4 more 5x7 cards that are just a simple single fold, because by then you'll probably be ready for one of those. When you first get your kit, you can download the instructions, but you can also have access to a full workshop video that will walk you through the trimming and prep and assembly process for every single card in the collection. I'm going to give you access to these instructions and the video today so you can see the whole thing go down, and also the ability to purchase this member kit called the Confetti card kit, so you can make these cards for yourself if you like. Now you'll want to set yourself up with some really important tools before you get started. Number 1, this is the trimmer that I use. It's a Fiskars guillotine style trimmer. It's a self-sharpening blade, so I never have to make any changes. I've used this one for years. You can even see some of the screen printing wearing away from the base of my trimmer, but this is my trimmer of choice that I love for my efficient process. I'm also using a accordion pocket file. Now I designed this actually for classroom use because I never had enough room on those tiny classroom tables. Can you relate to that? Just having enough space was always a challenge, especially when you're making a dozen cards or 8 pages. So this little file will organize all the pieces that we trim. We do all of our trimming ahead of time so we can just relax and assemble later. And then this little lip on the front of the accordion pocket file slides under the base of my trimmer. And then I've got 2 little hook and loop dots that just attach to the back of the trimmer just to hold it up. So the trimmer itself holds it up, and the little dots hold this. And now I can file easily and make use of my plentiful vertical space whenever I'm working on a project. So I use that accordion pocket file all the time. Next, what I typically do is just remove all of the papers from the bag, and I put them in the order in which they will be trimmed. So in all of my workshop videos that I provide with every monthly kit collection, this is the protocol. We'll put everything in its proper order. To determine that order, I just look at the instructions and read the heading of each item, and then look at what the color is listed, and that's the paper I find. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in order. Now this may seem like a very odd system to you. Like for example, when you make a card, you may shop through your stash, look what you have, maybe buy some things, get them home, and then you stare at it for a while, and then you choose the paper that you want, and you might think, all right, well, I'll make this into a card base, and you cut the size paper needed, and the rest gets set aside never to be looked at again, or perhaps saved for later. My goal is always to just use everything. Use all of the paper that's here with as few scraps as possible to get the maximum output from our time and our resources. So every single piece of paper is very specifically trimmed in a unique way. Now what's important to also, when you begin to trim paper, is because we're starting with a square, we can control the grain direction of the paper so that in the future when we fold it in half, we get a beautiful, neat and tidy fold rather than one of those against the grain crumpled folds. You can't tell the grain direction of paper just by staring at it. You can tell by holding the paper on an edge, the middle of an edge. You can study how flexible that paper is, and if you turn it one turn to the neighboring edge, now in this case the paper is very stiff. In this case, you see the paper visibly droop down in a certain direction. So every paper diagram that I provide you with will have an arrow if the grain direction during the trimming process matters. And yes, it matters in this case. This piece of paper is going to grow up to become a card base, and I want to cooperate with the grain direction. So I'll drop it into the trimmer with the grain dipping up and down, just as indicated by that arrow in the diagram. And I'll repeat for this white print, same thing. Just make sure it's dipping easily top to bottom. Now what I'm going to do is trim both of these at the same time according to my written instructions, which I would also do for you on video. We'll just trim this one sheet together, or both at the same time, so you can get an idea for how this feels. So let's just go ahead and cut this at 11 and then 5.5. So I just look at my numbers on the trimmer base here. We measure everything here at Club Scrap. Then rotate and cut at 8.5. Now we are going to end up making 3 sets of cards, and I label them set A, B, and C. So the 2 pieces here that we just created are used in card set A. Therefore, I'll file them in the pocket labeled A, and now everything's just there, nice and organized. And these 2 other remnants from that sheet are used in card set C, so I'll put that in the C pocket. Then I'll take the next piece and trim it again at 8.5. Set A, and look. Set C. Okay, then we have this little piece here. This actually gets trimmed as well. So I will cut this horizontally at 9.5 and 5. Okay, take both of these pieces and put them in the pocket labeled D. That's for our 4th set of cards, those 2 bonus cards. Now, so far, these 2 pieces are the only scraps that we have. There will be a few other small, inconsequential pieces. We'll just set those aside. What I would do then next is walk you through the trimming process for all the remaining sheets of paper. Some of them will be trimmed 2 at a time. How about we just do one more pair of papers together so you get the idea of how this works. So I'm double checking the grain direction for the aqua and the blue, making sure it's in the trimmer, dipping easily top to bottom. And I'll cut at 11.25 and 6.25. Then rotate and cut at 9. This is going to be a base for card set B, so I'll file that. And believe it or not, these pieces were not used. Sorry about that. Then let's take this next section, the 5x12. We'll cut it horizontally at 10.25, 7, and 3 3/4. Okay, so this first piece we'll place in pocket A. Those are going to be panels. Then the next piece needs to be trimmed horizontally at 4.5. That also goes in pocket A for that shaker card. Same for the next pair of panels here. We'll trim those horizontally at 4.5 and file that in pocket A. Ooh, some more little scraps, just those ends and this little strip here. Sometimes I put those in another pile just in case I want to add them to a card. And this very narrow strip here, I'm going to go ahead and trim that at 7 inches. Notice that I'm bringing the paper just to the bottom of the inch straight line under the inch marking so I can see the measurement a little better, and cut it at 7. And this goes in pocket C. And you'd continue following on through until all of these papers are trimmed. By the time you've finished all this paper trimming, and it shouldn't take too long, once you get proficient with how the method works, you'll have this little pile of scraps. So it's really not that many scraps considering the fact that we're making 14 cards. And then the next step would be to consult page 1 of your instructions, where you will find a little map of the cut-aparts we've included in your kit. So this matches this, and on each cut-apart it tells you which card the item is used on, and then you can file it in the corresponding pocket. Now every single sheet of cut-aparts also has these little hash marks, these little light gray marks that tell you where to trim, so there's never really any doubt as to what your cuts will be. So once you trim all of these little pieces from the sheet and file them, you'll be ready to start assembling your cards. Now let's just say you're a stamper and you're thinking, well, those cut aparts are nice, but I'd really rather stamp my own cards. That's no problem. All you would need to do is continue to still follow along with all the trimming guidelines we've provided. Flip the paper over and voila, you have a plain side you can stamp on. So this is still making an excellent cutting guide for all of the pieces needed to beautifully complete these cards. If you ever have other special instructions for any of our card kits, you'll find those in the preparation section of the instructions, and plus I'll walk you through the process step by step on the workshop video. In this case, we've included a sheet of transparency film that needs to be trimmed, and so we'll place this horizontally into the trimmer at 6, and just give that a little slice, and then slide down to 3. And then we'll just stack these two 3 by 8.5 pieces and cut horizontally at 4 1/4. These 4 little pieces are going to be used as the windows for our shaker cards. Plus the extra sheet here can be used for additional shaker cards if you wish. Sometimes we have really unique goodies from other vendors featured in our kits, and this time we chose to include a 6 by 12 sheet of this gorgeous Renea foil. And I too have trimming instructions for that. So I'll go ahead and follow those instructions and file the pieces accordingly. Once the foil's been trimmed, you'll have 4 tiny little scraps, plus another pretty decent size sheet that you can make some bonus projects with if you like. Again, my goal is to always just help you use what we provide in an efficient way, and we'll do some fun things with that foil. With everything trimmed, this is what your accordion pocket file will look like. Tons of creative potential here, and everything's set to go. So the next thing I'll do is score my card bases. I use a score pal for the job, and whenever I score, I tend to just work, if possible, with 2 sheets at the same time. So if you place them into the score pal and you kind of give it some nice firm pressure, possibly a second pass, you've just been able to score 2 pieces really beautifully at the same time. Keep in mind also that if you're working with a print, for the most part, you'll always score with the print side facing up. Whenever I'm making a card that has a score that goes in 2 different directions, I change my scoring accordingly. So in this case, when I score the pieces for that card, I'll start out by scoring at 2 1/4. And again, I'm working with 2 sheets at a time, thus being a lot more efficient. Then flip the whole thing bottom to top and score at 4 1/2. I'll do that for the other pair of cards in the same size. Now, as you're scoring, remember that we've already trimmed the paper so that we're cooperating with the grain direction. The score is just a nice formality to make it super nice and neat. If you happen to have a score pal but don't feel like making the scores on a piece of paper that's folded just exactly in half, all you need to do is place the paper into the score pal and use it as a jig, and that will help you align the corners of the card more easily. Sometimes it's just a little bit hard to see, so use your score pal as a tool to help you fold neatly. Now also, as a rule of thumb, on the score line, you're going to find a divot and a bump. So always make sure that you bury the bump of the score inside the fold. That is if your paper has been scored. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. All right, with our scoring done, now we are ready to assemble each card set. The first thing I do is pull everything out of the designated pocket. So this is card set A, everything from pocket A, and then I turn to my instructions, and then I look at each image of the card I'm about to make, and I deal out all the pieces accordingly. Then, with everything distributed properly, I'll just set aside all but one set, and let's just make this card together. With a shaker card, you always need to have some sort of a window, but not everyone has the right equipment to make a shaker card window just with a large square punch or die. So here's a really fun and easy way to do this. Just simply pierce a hole into the center of the piece that you plan to have the window. And then from that center hole, I can cut in an X shape to the outer edge of my little opening here. And this has been pre-printed on this cut apart, so that makes it easy to figure out. Very good. Now that you have your X marks the spot, you can take some sort of a ruler. I use Club Scrap's grid ruler to sort of mask off the area I want to keep. And then I'll just take that triangular flap and simply tear it away. And I'll have a nice torn edge to my inner window. Next, I'll temporarily center these two pieces. I can see from the back, once this is lined up, that it's centered. I'll flip it over, and I have some adhesive on the back of this, and I'll just adhere that to the opening that I've created by tearing away that window area. Next, I'll add adhesive around the entire perimeter of my card and the window, and add this transparency film, so now my window is sealed. And enter the foam adhesive. So just whatever type of foam adhesive you like, just trim to fit the entire perimeter of the card. Now, as I mentioned, we try to include everything you need to make the cards in the kit, including the envelope. So at this point, I'm going to grab the little bag of confetti style sequins that we've included and add some to the opening in the window, and then I'm going to carefully remove the backing of my foam adhesive. Okay, and now we're ready to add our panel with artwork in it that should be placed in the window as long as this is all centered as it should be. I'll flip that over. Ta-da! There's your shaker card. So all that's left is, if you wanted to add some more embellishments at this point, you could. I'll forego that for the time being and center this onto the next panel and then onto my folded card base. Lastly, all of our card kits come with the inner sentiments for the cards should you choose to use them. You don't have to if you want to keep your sentiment out or just near the card so that you can add it if you want. Perhaps you wanted to use this as a birthday card, of course, then you can switch that out, no problem. But there is your first shaker card. Now the beauty of this is that everything you need to make 4 additional shaker cards is ready to go, and all of that came out of just those few sheets of paper that we trimmed at the beginning. All of the panels, everything you needed is all prepped and ready to go. It's just a matter of enjoying the assembly process. The second pocket, I now have all of these materials. I can repeat the same process, so I'll deal out each individual piece needed for the cards into its respective pile. This is a really clever card assembly. I'll just show you how one of these pieces comes together, and then of course it'll make sense to you after that. And that's essentially what I do in my video workshops as well. Once you've learned how to make the first card, the rest come together quite easily. So here again, just to review, there is a bump on this score here, and there's a divot on this side. Make sure when you fold on that score that you bury the bump inside the card, and that does fold the card exactly in half. Now there's another score line here. This happens to be a bump. That's because we flipped the paper when we were scoring it, so now I have this split flap. There's another scored piece in your set of materials as well. This one has the bump here, so I'm going to fold inward on that. And there's a panel that's large enough to perfectly nest on the inside of your card base. So this is kind of cool. Again, with everything trimmed in advance, it's so easy to put all of this together. I'm going to secure this little flap to the back of my card. And then I'll add more adhesive to attach this panel to the card itself, making sure that this yellow flap is on the right and the flap of the card base is on the left. Here we have another really cute panel that will fit into this spot, and then the Renea foil can be placed either gold side up or blue side up. In this case, I think I'm going to add it with the gold side up just to be different. In my finished cards, I ran the foil through a blind embossing machine, or an embossing machine with a texture folder, and oh, it was just so effective, so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. But in the interest of time, I'll just attach that, and that's just to show you how beautifully that all nests. Now, the front sentiment for this card just says, "It's your birthday." And here's a fun little ribbon trick. We've provided this gorgeous, I think this is more than an inch wide, this beautiful metallic ribbon. So I'm just going to cut it kind of like a parallelogram and fold that ribbon in half. Tuck it behind this cut apart panel. These are all just little little fun assembly tips here, and then I'll just tape that to the back. And that way, you know, if you use a staple, sometimes it can get a little more dimensional than we want it. So, but by using tape, that'll fit really easily onto our panel without adding any dimension. Okay, then on this piece, I could also take some ribbon and wrap it around the base if I wanted to, but either way, what we now know is we trimmed it ahead of time to fit perfectly into that little spot. Then if I want, I can add the interior sentiment to the card. This one says, "Have a blast." And I've even thought to include a white liner that you can adhere to the inside of the card as well. Since this is a printed area, now I have a spot to write my sentiment and or my greeting and sign the card. So that is the fun split flap card. And again, with the confetti card kit, you'll make a total of 4 cards in this really fun style. The same routine applies for card set C. Just simply empty the pockets and start distributing all the pieces to the appropriate card base. Okay, let's make one of these cards together. Let's make it this one just for fun. And I want to show you kind of a handy assembly trick. For starters, this particular kit comes with a roll of this really nifty holographic washi tape. So I'm just going to stretch a piece of this across my aqua strip that we prepared earlier. And I'll just snip that off. So cool. I love this tape. And we look for stuff like this to include all the time. Now this is going to provide a base for our card after I think I have it sandwiched in between one of the panels. Now whenever I'm adding a panel to a card, I like to make sure that it's centered from top to bottom. So what I generally do is use a grid ruler to determine the center of my panel. And it looks like I need to have a reveal here of 3/4 of an inch. So I just align this panel. So I'm 3/4 of an inch from the edge of the card fold and 3/4 from the top and bottom. That's the position I have found here with this handy grid ruler. And this ruler helps me prevent gluing things up or downhill, which is always my visual tendency. So now I know this panel is exactly centered. Do you ever glue a panel to your card base, walk away and come back and you're like, oh, it's tilted, it's not level? I hate it when that happens. Now I'm going to be using my ruler, a line on the grid to align with the bottom edge of the card, just so I can attach my strip, also not running downhill. I just like to have my cards nice and, you know, professional looking. After all, that's what we want to be as professional card makers, right? And then now, because the margin on this next panel is a little bit narrower, I can still choose to eyeball it, or I can use the ruler once again to help me center this. And I think it's like 1/4 of an inch here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 1/4 of an inch. Boom, that ruler helped make it just perfect. Make sure your card will open correctly and center that. You know your old when. And the inner sentiment is provided. The candles cost more than the cake. Happy birthday. How practical is that? So every month we have a different theme. This just happened to be this confetti theme, which is super fun. Now, I don't know if you know this earlier, I showed you that paper has a grain. Ribbon has a grain too. You can see this ribbon wants to fold this way. It would loop up that way. So when I make a bow with ribbon, I like to make sure I'm cooperating with the grain direction, which I am. Did you know that? Did you know ribbon had a grain? I didn't always know that. I kind of just discovered it. Now I'm just making a real basic bow. This is going to be so sweet on this card. And then if you want to make a swallow's tail, you just fold the ribbon in half lengthwise and trim toward the center of the bow to make that pretty swallow's tail with one little snip. Then grab your glue dots or whatever you like to use, and you can add this really pretty bow to the front of your card. Isn't that fun? Okay, so that is card set C. We even have bonus cards in this collection. Okay, for set D, it's just a simple matter of distributing all the parts and pieces and then nesting them together and adding a few things to make them fun. One of the things I'd like to point out is this cute little pinwheel. I'll quickly show you how to make that as a bonus for today. I'm just going to pierce into the center of the foil and then take scissors and go from each corner toward the center of the piece, but like maybe about halfway there. Then all you need to do is just fold those corners, and due to the nature of this fun foil, you can just bring those tips to the center and they'll tend to just stay right there. And then I'll just go through one more time and pierce to make way for a brad, or maybe something. Do you have a brad? I'm sure we all have little brads on our stash. So it's like any old brad, and just separate the prongs at the back. And now you've made a really adorable embellishment for one of your cards in set C. In fact, isn't that just the sweetest thing ever? So I've even prepped the Renea foil pieces for you with my trimming instructions, so everything's ready to go for assembly. So just to review, everything you see here, all 14 of these cards and the envelopes were included in our card kit, and we release these monthly. A card kit membership is just $21.95. That's an $8 savings on shopping for the kit. If you were just not a member, you're still welcome to shop, of course, but you get a substantial savings as a member, and then you get the instruction download and the workshop video every month. So it's like a class in a box. Everything you need is in the box, and you just follow along with me in the video with the trimming instructions, which are fully recyclable. So once you've mastered these cards, take the same cutting instructions, substitute with papers from your stash, and you can create yet another set of cards with what you already have on hand. It's a really fun and efficient way to do it. So if you're tired of just looking at your stuff and not really being sure about where to start, this is a great place to start because the end result is guaranteed. Now, of course, memberships are what keep all 9 of us here at Club Scrap working hard, and I'd like to make a special offer to you. If you like the idea of this little accordion pocket file organizer, I have a kit that helps you make this, along, of course, with a video tutorial. So if you join Club Scrap as a result of this event by using the code Confetti, CONFETTI, I will not only give you free shipping on all orders over $40, I will also give you a kit. This is an accordion pocket file starter kit. It includes our awesome bookbinding glue, a needle tip applicator, and everything you need to make your very own accordion pocket file. And again, I will give you a tutorial that will fully help you learn how to make this for yourself so that you can stay organized while you're making all your awesome cards. There you have it, the Confetti card kit. Maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now because of the pace that we took. Remember, that's not the pace that I take in that video. And YouTube has this nifty feature where you can just hit the speed and lower it a little bit, so it really slows me down. Some of our members do that, and it really works well for them. So if you are wanting to find the information about how you can get your instructions, so you can make these fabulous cards, and more information about Club Scrap, I have a special place for you to visit, and it's easy to find. Just simply enter clubscrap.com/Manchester. Just go there, and you'll be able to see everything from the instruction download, the video, the supplies that I use, links to the confetti kit so you can get your own kit and make your own cards by following along with me. I'd love to see you over there. Now, again, if you join Club Scrap today using code Confetti, that's the shopping code at the end of your order. If you use Confetti and you become a new member, I will include that accordion pocket file kit. If you spend more than $40 and use code Confetti, your shipping will be free. And if you use code Confetti, you will get member pricing on your kits. That's a savings of $8 on every kit that we sell. So we have some exciting shopping opportunities for you. And I just want to thank you for participating in this event, for your support of creating keepsakes events. We are so honored to be a part of this tradition, and we hope to see you in person next year.